You're listening to Santa Fe Fashion Week, Fashion Behind the Curtain podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Cuomo. I'm really excited to have Haley on as our guest on the show. Haley,
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your journey into the fashion industry.
So, my journey is a little bit unconventional for sure. It kind of starts a little bit back in 2004 when I was diagnosed with a heart condition. And growing up, I loved fashion and I loved dressing up, and I didn't want my health to kind of be what people thought about me. And so I struggled to find clothes that like worked with my heart monitor when I had to wear it for periods of time. And that kind of shaped what how I thought about clothing and how I felt about fashion. And from there, I used kind of fashion to help make the impression of me that I wanted people to see, rather than seeing if I had a medical device or thinking about my health struggles when they think about me. And so I used fashion as a way to kind of control the narrative a little bit. And then from there, I studied fashion design at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. And I had the opportunity to learn about adaptive clothing, and it really interested me because it kind of resonated with what could have benefited me as a child growing up, and that's kind of how I got into fashion and kind of what I do now.
It's interesting how past experiences kind of affect the direction we went to. A lot of people don't realize I had hernia surgery it's probably been about a year now, and I had some issues coming out of surgery, and I actually had a catheter on for a month. It was horrible, but
Wow.
I had a catheter bag, so I know what that's like to like be wearing jeans, and then you can kind of see the bulge from the bag, whatever they call that thing. So I kind of get it now, more so than I probably would have before my surgery.
Absolutely, and that's funny because that's kind of exactly the type of thing that I designed for, or at least that kind of falls under the same category. So it is really interesting how they're all connected.
So let's start with school. So you had health issues, and then you go to school. What was that process like going to FIT, and what was the most you think you got out of going to FIT?
So it was a little bit different for me because of my health issues, I had to drop out of high school. And so I had to get my GED. So kind of I went into college feeling a little bit behind in some ways because I hadn't like been in school for a few years. Um, but FIT was like an amazing experience for me. I was surrounded by so many people who are incredibly talented. So I feel like it really pushed me as a designer, but also it kind of forced me to find like my niche in a way, because I realized that if I wanted to be successful, everybody else around me was just as or more talented than I was, and I needed to find something to kind of differentiate me as like a designer and kind of differentiate like my mission. And so I think like the most valuable thing I got out of FIT was kind of finding that and finding that passion, as well as just finding mentors who I still talk to, who have like had a really positive influence on my journey.
Yeah, a lot of times it's the networking and the relationships you build. Do you still stay in touch with some of the people you went to school with?
Yeah, I still stay in touch with like my classmates for sure. Everybody kind of ended up all around the country. I went to FIT in January of 2020, and so it was like a very interesting time moving to New York and starting school right before COVID happened. So it made my college experience a little bit more unique.
So were you actually in class during COVID, or were you doing it online, or how did they kind of work around that?
Halfway through my first semester, they sent us all home. And so I did half of the first semester in person and then half of the first semester online, and actually did the next two semesters online because they decided not to come back. And then my final semester of my associate's degree was in person. So it was a bit of a mix.
Hmm. So what was the curriculum like? Did you take marketing and business? Because I hear from a lot of designers that some schools fall short when it comes to the business side of fashion.
Yeah, so we actually didn't have any of those kinds of classes. I mean, they were available, but they weren't part of like the fashion design program curriculum. There was some opportunities. I did take like a starting a small business class, but I do think in a way it did fall short because you have these skills, but you're not sure how to like put them out there, and yeah, how to effectively communicate your ideas. So that's something that I kind of wish we had more of an opportunity with our, curriculum to take some of those kinds of classes. But I did have the opportunity at FIT. There was an entrepreneurship competition called the Pete Prize, and I applied. It was like the first year that they were doing it, and I actually won. So I won money in an office space for a year to help launch my business. So while the curriculum didn't include that, there were opportunities if you just kind of put yourself out there to get some of those like experiences.
So before we jump into the business side of it, how'd you pick up the skills that you felt, and maybe you didn't even know you were short those skills until you actually come across that issue, but how have you kind of filled the gap in that?
It's honestly just been a lot of trial and error. I am lucky that through the entrepreneurship competition that I did gain a lot of mentors who have like made such a difference. But a lot of it was truly just saying I have to commit, I have to do it. And I have learned so much. And I think I probably have learned more firsthand from trying to, start a business than I would if I had majored in business. Although I do think it would have been helpful to have, some of that background ahead of time.
So that understanding. So let's go into
Yeah.
the business side. So you're in school, you realize that you want to help people that wear devices, right?
Yeah.
Medical devices, I guess. And so, like any other business, I mean, conceptually, that sounds great, right? So, what were some of the
Mhm.
challenges once you said, "Okay, this is the direction I want to go"?
So there's been some challenges and challenges I'm still working through. The like adaptive market is actually really big and there's a lot of spending power within the disabled community, but I feel like it's not a market that's fully tapped into yet. So one, a challenge is that people don't really know that adaptive wear exists, at least on the scale that like we're trying to like make it. And then the second thing is just convincing people who have these chronic health conditions to put their money into your products. I know firsthand as someone who does have health problems, um, medical costs are insane, and so you are a lot more careful about how you spend your money. And I feel like within that whole health industry there's a lot of like scams and a lot of people making promises you can't keep. And so I think people are very hesitant to buy things because they don't want to feel burned. And so I think I've had like an amazingly easy time connecting with people, but it's more of the marketing of the products and trying to convince people, that this is worth spending their money on, I would say are some of like the challenges.
Do you find that people are doing like Google searches, like people that have health issues? Are they Googling like fashion or things to wear? Are they finding you that way, or how do, what's that process like?
Yeah, so for me, the majority has actually been through social media. When I was a part of this competition, and I didn't even know if I was going to do this full time, it just started with an idea. I went on TikTok with no followers. I created a new account with like the name of my business, which is Vertige Adaptive. I posted a video just talking about what I was doing. And one of the first ones got like 10,000 views. So like, nothing crazy, but enough,
That's still
where
good,
I
yeah.
got some traction and like I got maybe like 1,000 to 1,500 followers overnight, and people seemed really interested. So I've connected with people majority through social media, but I've also gone to some different like medical health conferences and have met people there and have built relationships, and then kind of through word of mouth. So um, I think it's like been a little bit less about like Googling and more about people just stumbling upon a video that like resonates with them, and then they kind of learned about it. So.
So when you had this video and you had 10,000 views, how far into your business were you? Did you already have a collection set up, or were you just kind of testing the market?
So I had nothing. It was an idea and it was like I was in the process of, yeah, coming up with a collection, like working on strategy, coming up with financials. It was truly just like an idea at that point. So I'm lucky that people kind of stuck with me because it from when I posted that video to when I actually launched a collection, it was between like a year and a half and 2 years. So it was like quite a long process from the idea to actually like, launching the whole vision.
Interesting. So let's talk, not to too deep of a dive into the financials, but obviously financials is very important when when you're running
Yeah.
a business. So are you manufacturing in the States, or what's your manufacturing process like?
Yeah, so I initially was manufacturing over in Turkey. and had like a really good experience. The quality and stuff was amazing. But as an entrepreneur, a small business owner, and kind of a startup founder, the cost of like production is one of like my biggest costs. And so somebody from FIT, one of my mentors, named Michael Ferraro, he introduced me to Nicole Hugaboom, who does made to order manufacturing in Arizona. And so what I'm able to do with her is, come up with some concepts and ideas and test them without having to put a lot of money up front. And then, if a product is doing really well and I want like a larger quantity, then I can go back, to the factory in Turkey. So it gives me a like really like financially sustainable way of testing products without committing to the like the big, uh, order quantity costs.
That's a smart idea. I've talked to other designers that they similar, I guess, but also talk about like having a backup manufacturer because if things do go sideways with one
For sure.
manufacturer. So, how'd you find the manufacturer in Turkey? Was that through a connection or?
Yeah, so somebody at FIT connected me to someone who did freelance work with like production. So their whole kind of business was, finding people like me and helping them through the whole manufacturing process. And I obviously graduated from FIT, but I also didn't really know anything and I didn't have any real experience. So having like that help for the first collection, I learned so much just from hiring this person. But then after that, I had a grasp on things and was able to kind of do it on my own. So
Interesting. So, do the three of you communicate? I mean, are you, the person in Arizona, and the designer in Turkey? Do you guys all work as a team, or do you just, like you said, hand off to the person in Arizona and then flip it to the person in Turkey?
So I am still kind of testing. I'm shifting my business a little bit, and so I'm still kind of testing things. So I haven't gone back to Turkey yet, but I do all the designing. I have a pattern maker here in New York City where I'm at, and they grade the patterns, kind of clean them up a little bit, and then we send them over to the manufacturer in Arizona. They give me a sample. I make any changes I need to. And then that's kind of how we go from there. And then I have a few different like fabric and like notion sources that I use. So right now it's kind of me doing, all the communicating and stuff.
That's cool. So, walk us through the. So, are you selling directly to consumer? Are you going the wholesale way? How
Right.
are you
Yeah,
doing?
right now it's direct to consumer. I sell e-commerce on my Shopify website, and then I'm also on a couple of different marketplaces, like Walmart's marketplace and a few other smaller ones.
So, if you're because again, I talked to a lot of different designers. I spoke to a designer the
Mhm.
other day that she's done both online. She does some wholesale, and then she's also based in New York. And I was looking at your website. So not only do you sell to people that have medical devices, but also people without medical devices, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So with that said, so she goes to these different boutiques, I guess, throughout Manhattan and Brooklyn, and we talked about consignment stuff of that nature. But also, what was interesting to her, talking to her, she doesn't have a sales rep. But let's say a boutique in Brooklyn's doing better than I grew up in Suffolk County, Hopog. But let's say
Oh,
something's
good.
doing better in Manhattan than in Hopog or Suffolk County. She's able to actually go and maybe move things around. So say, oh, that's not really
Okay.
selling that well at your boutique. I'll take, I'll swap it out for something else and things like that. So have you talked to boutiques in about your city?
So, I haven't quite talked to many boutiques yet. I did do, there's a place called Brooklyn Flea, and you're able to kind of be a vendor. It's like this really big indoor space. And I did do that. And I kind of found that the word adaptive greatly kind of turns people away who don't have a medical or like health condition. And the whole like reason why I wanted to start this company is so everybody could wear the same thing. I didn't want it to be like, oh, here's some adaptive clothes and it looks good for being adaptive. I wanted to be like, here's clothes that everybody wants to wear, but also happens to, accommodate people with like those needs. But I found that like that was like the word and like just the psychological aspect behind it was like a barrier to reach my other customers. So which is kind of why I'm in the process now of like shifting things a little bit. A lot of things will stay the same, but I'm kind of making adaptive almost like the secondary marketing wise and talking about it as multifunctional and innovative and high quality kind of pieces. And so I think when I do like, finalize that shift, I think I would be ready to go to some boutiques. But right now, the messaging is, yeah, it's like I think people who don't have those problems aren't responding to it. And so kind of going to that market and talking to people and stuff was like a big eye opener for me. So anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying that's what I plan on doing, but just need to make a few changes first.
Well, it's essentially like, the founder's story, right? You have a concept, and then until you start talking to people, you don't really know. And oftentimes people will be nice and like, "Oh yeah, we think that's a great idea." And then when you actually go back to sell them, it's like, "Well, that's not really what we want to do," right? So
For
it's kind of
sure.
good to get real time feedback and then kind of pivot as need be. So again, so people obviously have different medical devices. So they go to your website. Are you making what again for us that don't purchase those kind of products? What does that look like? So people have different medical devices. Is it customizable when they go to your website, or kind of walk us through that?
So, like, currently, um, it's not customizable, but the features are kind of thoughtfully, designed to accommodate, like, a wide range of people. So, one garment could accommodate somebody with a feeding tube, an ostomy bag, a, insulin pump, a central line, port, things like that. There's a lot of brands out there who accommodate people who are, like, in wheelchairs or have issues with their hands, like mobility issues. But there wasn't really anything out there to accommodate people who have like medical devices and things like that, or just people with chronic illness who maybe want clothing that's a little bit more, you know, easy, user friendly, easy to put on, but also looks fashion forward. And so that was kind of my like target customer. But with this kind of shift that I'm working on, I'm thinking about basically having the adaptive features as an add-on for no additional cost. So you can say like, oh, if I need a hidden opening in the side because I have a feeding tube or an insulin pump, you can add that on. So I think it kind of will be somewhat customizable in like the very near future.
That sounds pretty brilliant, especially if you could do with the person in Arizona, right? They could go online, say
Absolutely.
this is my needs, and then because I think it'd be challenging to do a large run, right? Because you have multiple sizes, stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think it's almost like plug and play, right? This is what I need. It reminds you like the old Dell computer and
Yeah.
Gateway, if you're old enough to remember Gateway computers, right?
Yeah.
But you could build it. So, what's the turnaround time when you're doing this just in time manufacturing? So, somebody goes to your website, they buy something. Do they do you how does that how does that process go? They go to
Yeah.
Shopify, they buy something. Does it go directly to your manufacturer, or do you still kind of have to walk it through that?
Yeah, so I'm fulfilling my first collection, which isn't made to order. So if somebody purchases that, then I'll fulfill it. And if they purchase something like strictly from the newer collection, which is directly through the made to order manufacturer, the factory over there will get a notification, and then within like 48 to 72 business hours, they'll make it and ship it out, which is like amazing because it also takes like the fulfillment kind of pressure and stuff off of me. And then there's also times where people place an order and they buy one of each. And so then part of kind of usually they'll get it in two separate packages. So they'll get, the first thing from me and then the next thing. So kind of a combination. But the website is integrated with the made to order manufacturer. So there's not a lot on my end that I have to do, which is really nice.
Yeah, I have a clothing brand. It's really just kind of graphic tees and stuff like that, but it's called Fashion Show Junkie. So it's for people that are in the fashion show. So I have a
That's
bomber
awesome.
jacket, but I do Shopify, but it's through Printable. But then
Okay.
the blanks really aren't that great. So I'm trying to figure that out because, like you said, it's hard because if you travel, doing fulfillment's hard, right? Because something comes
Yeah,
in, you're not there.
for
It's nice.
sure.
It's nice to have something like that. So if that's how are you handling returns? Have you had returns? What is that process? Does it go back to like where you live at? How do you handle the returns?
Yeah, so the returns, because like a lot of the products are made to order, I mean, it is possible to resell them, but we have like a wider range of sizes and like multiple colorways. And so it is kind of one of those things where if somebody does return, we kind of have to like take the loss and then like maybe hope that somebody else is going to order the same size and color of that product. But that being said, I'm very lucky because we don't get a lot of returns. Um, it's, kind of more rare and it has more to do with like, fit or sizing. So it's not like a major issue, but I'll just have them send it back to me and then I can use that like as a sample of some kind for a photo shoot, or sometimes I'll do markdowns, if it was bought, and just kind of offer at like a lower price.
I think that's an interesting way to go because selling things that are more forgiving, right? Because if you're selling like jeans or something that's meant to fit fairly tight, and everybody's got different, they fit different ways or sizing so much different from one store to another. So you're basically selling things that maybe are more forgiving as far as like blouses and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of it's fitted and then some of it, is forgiving. And then there's a lot of like adjustability in my clothes. That was something that was really important to me. So, some of the dresses that are a little bit flowier will have kind of like a belt, or some of the fabric, is a little bit stretchier and not on everything, but I do try to make clothes that, can fit people. Another big thing is like weight fluctuations. I mean, I think like all humans just experience that in general, but especially with chronic illness, different medications and all different things like that can kind of make people have, minor or major weight fluctuations. So, on one of the pairs of pants that I have, there's an adjustable waist. So you can make it the waist up to 3 inches smaller, with these like little decorative looking tabs. And so that's kind of like another thing. And it kind of cuts back on people having to return things because it is able to be a little bit customized to them.
Cool. So go back into the fashion side of it. How are you inspired? Like, are you following market trends or how are you doing that? How do you go about that?
So I kind of try to get a little bit of feedback from my customer. I'm lucky that I've built relationships with a lot of the customers that I have. And so I do like get a lot of feedback from them. But I found that actually the pieces that sell the best are actually just like pieces that come from my heart and I really like. So that's kind of something that I'm trying to listen to a little bit more and be confident in is like my own designs and my own ideas. So I do like try to design things that are definitely fashion forward, but things that don't fall under like a micro trend because I want people to like buy these pieces and want to wear them for years and years. And so I kind of do try to steer away from things that are super popular in this moment and things that have a little bit more of like a classic silhouette.
That's cool. Well, Haley, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. So, how do people reach out to you as far as your website and your social media?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you for having me. If you want to find me, you can go to my website. It's vertigeadaptive.com. And all of our social media, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook is at Vertige Adaptive.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for being a guest on our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.